Today I'm going to show you how to quickly install and start running Sass on your system. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how you can organize your files and show you a workflow that makes it easy to work with Sass quickly and conveniently. So to start with, Sass works on a number of different operating systems. The main requirement is that you have Ruby installed. So let's check. So I do a ruby-v, and I can see that I've got Ruby version 2.0, so I'm good to go. On the other hand, if I do a Sass-v to see if I have Sass installed, I can see that Sass isn't installed yet. Fortunately, installing Sass is very easy. For the Macintosh, you have to do a sudo in order to install Sass, although on Windows and Linux that may not be necessary. So I'll type the command sudo gem install and then Sass. It didn't ask me for my password because I had recently done a sudo. But here it is installing the Sass gem and then installing the Ruby documentation. And now I can do a sass-v and I can see that Sass is installed and working properly. So let's see if I can get Sass working in an actual project directory. Now the directory that I'm in is the installing Sass project. And this is how you would typically organize a web project. If I do a tree here, you can see that inside here I have a public directory, inside of which is my CSS directory, which has my styles.css, and an index.html file. And if I do a quick more on the index.html file, you can see that it's just a standard HTML file with a title and a link to the CSS styles CSS file. So let me quickly demonstrate this page running in a browser. So I'm going to bring up a browser. And here in this tab, I'm going to run a script that I have called Simple Server. And this runs a little Python server that I have on port 8080. And actually, I've run that in the wrong directory. I need to run that inside of the public directory. So let's go to the public directory and run Simple Server. Okay. And now, if I refresh this web browser, I should see this HTML file being loaded properly, and let's just take a look at the CSS and show you that all that it's doing right now is setting the font to a serif font and changing the body color for the text to 006, which is this nice dark blue. So if I wanted to start doing CSS development using Sass so that I could have pre-processing power, what I would want to do in this installing Sass directory is create a directory called Sass. So let's make a directory called Sass. And inside of that directory, let's create a quick Sass file that'll just generate some quick and easy Sass. So let's see, I'm going to call it Sass styles.scss. And let's go directly to the Sass site and pull up some sample code that they have. So on the Sass site, you can find the Learn Sass guide, and here they have a number of examples of different techniques for using Sass. The one I'm going to start with here is just this quick SCSS syntax. You can see what they're doing is they are creating some variables. They are then using those variables inside of their SCSS to replace them with the values that are being created up here. So I've created some SCSS, and it's in my Sass directory. In order to make use of that SCSS file, I need to process it so that it generates the CSS I want. That means issuing a Sass command and telling the Sass command what file I want converted and what file I want converted out of it. So the command starts with Sass, and then I type the path to the SCSS file that I want converted, and then I type the path to the CSS file I want generated, which is in public CSS styles.css. Now when I run this command, it's going to overwrite anything that's currently in the CSS file. So it's very important to remember, once you've started using Sass for your workflow, don't do any edits directly in your CSS files. All of your changes need to live in the Sass, because any Sass that you create, when you generate, it's going to overwrite the CSS files. So I run this command, and let's do a tree again. I want to show you something. So here, we've got the directory that we're in. You can see the public directory, and you've got the Sass directory, and you've got the CSS directory inside of public. And here, inside of the CSS directory, you can see that there's the styles.css. It's also created a styles.css.map file. This is something new with Sass 3.3 and above. The map file actually makes it more convenient to do some editing inside of the browser. It helps with the developer tools. It's actually pretty powerful stuff. But these things all get published out to the server. So let's take a look at our CSS file that got generated and see what it says. So we can see that the CSS file that got generated basically took the values that were in the Sass file and applied them. The font has been set to Helvetica and sans serif, and the color has been set to 333, and those were variable values that we had in our SCSS file. There's also a reference to that styles CSS map file. And if we go back to our web browser and we reload this page, we'll see that the styles have been applied. Now, if we wanted to make an edit to the SCSS file that we just created, let's bring up Vim again, and let's edit our styles.scss. Let's change the primary color from that simple gray to a dark blue again. Now, if we reload, you'll see that absolutely nothing has changed, and that's because every time that you make a change to your SCSS file, you have to run your Sass command again. Running your Sass command will bring up the changes, and you can see this is now changed to a dark blue. But conveniently, Sass has a way of generating automatically every time that you make a change to the SCSS file, and that's using the Sas Watch option. So here I'm going to bring up another terminal window, and let's run the Sass with --watch. And in this case, we're going to type the name of the directory we want watched, which is the Sass directory, and the directory that we want things generated into, which is the public CSS directory. Now this is going to run constantly in the background while we're doing our web development. So here, if we go back in, we make some edits to our SCSS file. So in this case, let's change the font back to a serif font. Now, without doing anything else, all I have to do is reload the browser, and you can see that the changes have been populated out automatically to my CSS file. When you're done doing your development, all you do is publish out your public directory to your web browser, and all of your changes are there. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick introduction to getting Sass installed on your system, organizing your files for an efficient workflow, and then setting up Sas Watch to make sure that everything runs consistently while you're doing your development. This has been David Green for SitePoint.